Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Acura's all-new ADX, a compact SUV that isn't just built for one thing. It's precision crafted for everything. To escape the grind with available all-wheel drive. To go with your flow with available Google built-in.
Hey Google, turn it up.
Okay, turning up the volume. And crafted to be heard with an available Bang & Olufsen premium sound system. The all-new Acura ADX, crafted to match your energy. Acura, precision crafted performance.
Take your vibes and go, 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 go.
Google is a trademark of Google LLC.
Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, 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 come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means, and that's Andrew Gillis. This is your Tuesday, May 6th pod. The portal's closed. Nobody's playing football. People have been drafted. We are now officially in the dog days of the offseason, which means that the only thing going on is recruiting. So Andrew is now the star. This is your month, Andrew. This is when you get the ball and get to take 20 shots a game. Are you excited? Are you ready? Are you in shape enough to handle 20 shots a game? Because we're going to give them to you.
Yeah, I just don't want to end up like Kyle Kuzma, where he's like running around doing cardio and he has like 22 minutes, 0 assists, 0 rebounds, 0 points. As long as I don't end up like him, we're good. If I don't have that generational, box score where it's, what did you do here? I think we're going to be all right.
Those are always funny because they did shoot some shots. They just didn't make any of the shots. And they did absolutely nothing else with their time out there. Get the text 614-350-3315. We are kind of in that window right now where literally anything could happen. I think it's a dead period right now until June. So it's not like coaches are out on the road or recruits are coming in to Columbus, but you could see kids pop. Kids will be scheduling official visits for the summer. Ohio State's starting to load up on those. So we thought this would be the perfect time to do what we've always done here, and it's our first prediction of the 2026 Ohio State recruiting class. Earlier this year, we did more of a idea where I just asked Andrew to just put people, like put positions, like what do they need at certain positions? Well, now we're going to put names on all of those positions. Right now, Ohio State has 11 commits in its 2026 recruiting class. It's the number 3 recruiting class in the country, behind 2 schools where it's kind of funny that that's who they're behind, because it's a notion of like, this is how early we are into this cycle. Andrew, the top 5 is USC with 23 commits, Clemson with 14 commits, Ohio State with 11 commits, and then Texas A&M is 4 and Notre Dame is 5. They both have 11 commits as well. Of that top 5, I think Ohio State, I will pretty confidently say, is the only team who's in the top 5 right now who will still be in the top 5 after December.
Yeah. The thing that's funny about these rankings is that it's like, I've seen a couple of different recruiting services talk about it.
Yeah.
For example, On3 does theirs based off a running average. And there are some people that like that, to where if you have 3 commits and another program has 10, you still might be ahead of them if, you're whatever. Some people like that. There are other people who will say, no, it's a running scoreboard. Mm-hmm. And if a team has 18 commits, I remember Rutgers had a bunch like a year ago, or like Texas Tech had a bunch. Like, there are teams and people that will look at it and say, no. If Texas Tech has 18 recruits and Ohio State has 3, Texas Tech should probably be above Ohio State. Yeah. So it's a unique kind of look, but yeah, USC, you look at them right now at the top of the rankings. They do have 1 5-star, 12 4-stars, and 9 3-stars. that's
Quality class.
that's a quality class. It's gonna be scratching top 5. I don't think it's gonna end up top 5. Clemson's put together some guys, so we'll see. A&M, you never know. Notre Dame has had a really strong 2026 class as well, but I mean, Notre Dame recruiting has always kind of been outside the top 5, top 10-ish, so we'll see there. But yeah, I think Ohio State is the one with the staying power in that group that you feel most confident about.
I think this is Steven ranting again about things that it really doesn't matter, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's got to be a mixture of both, because I do think that Ohio State's average star rating right now is 92.71. Of the teams who are in the top 5, that is the second highest behind Texas A&M's 92.59. So I do think that should matter, but it should matter along with the quality and quantity, because LSU has a 94.46, but they only have 9 commits. Oregon, who's 13th overall, has an average star rating of 93.55, but they only have 8 commits. So if your early commitments are just highly rated guys, but you haven't started to build depth in your class, I do think that it's okay to dock you a little bit. We shouldn't just hang on one number or the other. Like, we shouldn't be hanging on the fact that Oregon is a 93.55 average star rating with only 8 commits, but we also shouldn't be hanging only on the fact that USC has 280 total points because they have 23 commits.
Well, Texas only has 4 commits. Texas has a higher average player rating than Ohio State right now in 2026.
Right.
And they've got 4 kids committed. Ohio State has 11. So,
and like, this is why I didn't even say Texas. They're not even in this. They clearly haven't even got started on what they're going to do this year. I think Ohio State somehow is I think properly rated because they've got a high average star rating, but they also have a high overall point total. And that class is led by Chris Henry Jr., the number 11 player and the number 2 overall wide receiver, and then Blaine Bradford, the number 25 player and the number 2 safety in the country out of Louisiana. Those are their 5-star commitments right now. Okay, let's get to some predictions here. Andrew sent me his list. I had to update it because 247, their composite, is in the middle of updating their rankings here, and it seems like Andrew was frustrated with that because it's kind of hard to make points when things are being updated, and they updated it again after he sent it to me. So his overall class total for 2026 is 24 commitments with a point total of 29.77. I didn't do the average star rating because I just didn't have time to do all that math. And 4 5-star recruits. If this number ends up being right, if this is where they get to, those 4 5-star recruits would tie the 2024 class, which also had 4. That would be second all time behind 2021 7 5-star recruits, or 6, depending on how you feel about Quinn Ewers. That 294.77 point total would be the fifth highest point total of the Ohio State Ryan Day era, behind 2021's 321. In 2022, they went over 300 as well. And then in 2025, they were 297. And 2020, they were 295. 24 commitments. This would tie 2021 for the third most commitments ever. They had 26 this past year, and they had 26 in 2020. So around the same range as Ohio State has typically always been, anywhere from 21 to 26 commitments. But here's where I want to start with. Sometimes when we've done this, Andrew, we've just gone in order of highest rated kid to lowest rated kid. I actually want to start at quarterback because you don't have Ohio State taking a quarterback in 2026. What is wrong with you?
Well, a lot. But for this particular answer, this was really hard because I think the answer is, and this is something that I would love to ask Ryan Day, do you need to take a recruit at quarterback every cycle? I think he would say yes, but I'm curious to hear how he says yes, if that makes sense. Because you look at where this room is at right now, it is really young. You have Lincoln Keenholz, third-year player, Julian Sand, second-year player, Tavian St. Clair, he's a true freshman. Next year, you're probably going to have Sand as a third-year player, St. Clair as a second-year player, and then is Keenholz still here? Like, if Julian Sand is the starter, is Keenholz still here? Is he somebody that comes into this class or comes into this group and goes, you know what, I tried. I gave it my best Devin Brown shot, and I didn't get the job done, and Julian Sand's the starter, and I need to go find greener pastures to where I can play. And I don't think anybody would begrudge him for that, and I don't think anybody should in this day and age of college football. But at that point, you're then talking about bringing in a transfer portal quarterback as a depth piece, which was why we were kind of saying a couple of weeks ago, hey, when we were talking about the portal, Ohio State would benefit from doing that. So, I look at the 26 class, and I think, frankly, the answer is that the odds are the quarterback that they're looking for has not been identified. I think if they were looking for a specific quarterback, Jared Curtis is going to commit to either Georgia or Oregon. He was a target for a while. Dia Bell was a target for a while. He committed to Texas. They are after a 5-star Ryder Lyons. He is from California. But I do think that there's a couple of reasons I put no here, because I didn't want to just throw a name out there and be like, hey guys, he's going to commit. I have no idea if he's going to commit. But I actually don't think Ohio State is going to be in a position to have to take a quarterback that they're not really maybe all that sold on. I think, this is definitely a development kind of year unless you get somebody like a Ryder Lyons who is uncommitted. He does have a ton of crystal balls in for USC, whatever you value that at. He's taken official visits to USC, to Oregon, and then to BYU. He's a California kid. Ohio State doesn't really feel, up there with those programs right now.
Yeah.
Brady Smeagol is in this class as well. Top 100 recruit. He's got crystal balls to Florida State. He's got an official visit scheduled to Michigan. So you look at it and go, none of these kids really feel like they're leaning Ohio State right now. And I think with Brady Edmonds coming in 2027, you might be able to get away with saying, we're going to take a transfer portal quarterback, like a third-year quarterback, fourth-year quarterback as a transfer portal guy, fill out the room, and then we still have Julian and Tavian, and then we have Brady Edmonds coming in a year. That, to me, feels almost just as likely as Ohio State taking a development quarterback. There are quarterbacks that they could take. There are quarterbacks that, I think are interesting. I know I'm kind of rambling here, but there are quarterbacks that you do kind of look at and say, okay, maybe this is a kid. There's a couple kids in the state of Ohio that you could look at and say, okay, maybe this is a kid where if you really, force the issue, you could, you could get him going. I'm trying to think of the one kid's name, Matt Ponatowski, I believe is his name in Cincinnati. He's uncommitted right now. Nathan Bernhard is from Ashland. He's 6'5", 230 pounds. He's a big kid. He does not have an Ohio State offer. None of these kids have Ohio State offers right now. So it's do the Buckeyes want to jump on this guy or not? And right now it just feels like not.
I only asked the question that way because he put NA when he means more TBD in this situation. I think what you're talking about is a situation where it might be the focus for you of the camps this summer is who does Ohio State bring in 2020? Because this is what they did in 2023 with Lincoln Kienholz. There was a time when they were bringing in a bunch of other guys who were camping and trying to see if they liked them, and they didn't like them, and they offered some, and they didn't offer others. And eventually they found Brock Glenn out of that group, and things kind of went left with that one, and it was almost a mutual parting between those sides, and they ended up with Lincoln Kienholz closer to signing day. But I do think it's probably more of that, where when we've talked about this in the past, Andrew, this idea of every 3 or 4 years, you might have to go get the developmental guy because you've recruited the room so well. You've got Lincoln Kienholz right now, who's a third-year guy. You got a 5-star who's a year younger than him and a 5-star who's a year younger than him. And I know that Brady Edmonds, they've updated the rankings, and he's not a 4-star, but that's which is confusing to me in its own right. I don't know what could have possibly happened in less than 30 days that you dropped him that many spots, like 100 spots for a guy who was a consensus 5-star amongst the board for you when no one's played football for 25 days. I don't understand how anybody could be on any site, not just 247, not just to pick on them, on 3, Rivals, whoever, everybody who does rankings, ESPN. Why are you updating anything right now? These kids haven't played real football in 4 or 5 months here. So what could possibly be happening that could force you to update these rankings other than just making whatever fan base upset or happy that you've moved up or moved their player down? But the point of the matter is you've done your job. Ohio State has done its job in 24, 25, and 27 in finding highly rated quarterbacks. So if that means in 26, all the highly rated guys, which is what happened in 2023, all the highly rated guys just didn't want to come here. If Jared Curtis and Faison Brandon and Dia Bell and Ryder Lyons and Brady Smigel and Bo Bentley and Noah Grubbs and Jaden O'Neal are all probably looking at this room in some capacity and going, that's too crowded for me. And you have to go get a guy who's rated in the low 200s or maybe even the 300s, then I understand that. And what does it do? Okay, we're going to get to the 2028 season, and it's going to be Brady Edmonds against whoever is in this class. Just like right now, it's Julian Sand against Lincoln Keenholz. And it's going to be a third-year guy versus a second-year 5-star. Good luck whoever wins that battle. But I do think this is a once again interesting conversation because the answer to the question isn't whoever the top 100 recruit is. That's going to be Ohio State's quarterback because it's a little bit more nuanced than that.
Well, okay. And just to throw in real quick, this can obviously fluctuate. Look, we're doing this, really early. Like, this is kind of a, where things may stand.
Yeah.
I'm just going to use him as an example just because I know he camped at Ohio State. Jaden O'Neal is committed to Oklahoma right now. He's a top 200 kid, number 182 in the composite rankings. Brent Venables is apparently on kind of thin ice at Oklahoma.
You mean losing seasons and watching the quarterback you let leave in the transfer portal excel at Oregon while the quarterback you chose over him is now at Auburn probably wasn't the best idea?
Some are saying that. Some could say that. But Oklahoma's headed to 4-8 or 6-6 or whatever the record is that gets him fired.
Yeah.
What if he gets fired in late November and all of a sudden Jaden O'Neal goes, whoa, and Ohio State's able to jump in the mix? I'm just using him as an example because if you look at some of the other quarterbacks, like Noah Grubbs, I know Ohio State offered him. I don't think Marcus Freeman's going to get fired this year. Troy Hune at Penn State, I know Ohio State was interested in him. I talked with him on the phone many, many moons ago, but doesn't sound like James Franklin's going to get fired, right? Like there are situations that are just not practical, but there are some that you could look at and say, hey, well, maybe this is an option.
So that's QB. It's a big TBD. I think they need to take a quarterback in the cycle. I think they should take a quarterback in every cycle. In fact, I think they should probably look for a portal quarterback for this year. Not a guy to be a starter, but just a guy so you have 4 guys in the room. And if not, definitely next year, because I don't know if you can bank on, if Julian Sand is what we think he's going to be, I don't think you can sit here and be like, hey, Lincoln, do the Devin thing where you lost one quarterback battle, but stick around and lose another quarterback battle. Lose another battle that's not really a battle. Okay, let's move on to running back then. By the way, 24 players in this class, which means there's 11 commitments. Andrew does not have them losing any commitments as of right now, which means he's adding another 13 players to the class. And that starts at running back with Carson Baker and Favor Akee.
Really like where they're at with Favor. I think Favor is an option to where when both parties are ready, it's going to be a pretty quick, let's make this happen. He's only going to take 3 official visits, 1 to USC, 1 to Miami. He said he would like to make his decision around that time when I went and visited him. So we'll see. Now, obviously, things can change, but, I would expect him to, be around that decision in June for a commitment. So I like Favor Key. He's from Delaware, Ohio, which is 20, 30 minutes north of Columbus. It's really not far. It was actually, I would appreciate Ohio becoming a great football state because then I can travel less distance to go see
How-
top 200
Whoa,
recruits.
whoa. How's a Greek football state? What are you talking about?
I want it to be California, Georgia, or Texas,
It's not
or
big
Florida.
enough. Big enough to be all that, but okay.
Yeah, so Favor, he attends Rutherford B. Hayes, for local listeners who might not know. So he's just a kid, I think, where you look at his speed and you see a running back that can, that can really kind of, move and shake a little bit. And, his coach was very, very high on him when I talked to him. And I think Favor is going to join this class. Then you start to get into some other interesting options, and these are the out-of-state kids. Derek Cooper is a 5-star running back out of Chaminade, Madonna. Perhaps you've heard of that. Perhaps y'all have heard of that school before. There is Savion Hyder. He attends Louisa County in Virginia, which is actually just like an hour and a half south of where I grew up. He is from Central Virginia. He is the number 1 running back in the class, number 18 overall prospect. Ohio State is in on him. Carlos Lachlan made a swing. We were texting Steven and Stefan and I. Carlos Lachlan went to go visit Darius Gray, an offensive lineman in the Richmond, Virginia area. And Steven said, this is what sending the house looks like. That was not Carlos Lachlan's only swing in late April. He went to go see Hyder as well. So Ohio State's in on him. But I landed on Carson Baker, and maybe this is me playing it safe. But I do really think that Carson Baker is a really good running back that Ohio State could add. He has an official visit scheduled for June 13th, which is the week after. Favor Key. The thing that I'm interested in, Favor's listed at 6'1", 190. Carson Baker 6'1.5" and 195 pounds. And Carlos Lachlan said you never want to have 2 of the same running back in your class. Carlos Lachlan said you never want to have 2 of the same running back in your group. You want to diversify your skill set. So I'm curious what that differentiates with their skill set, because Derek Cooper looks like a little bit more of a physical running back when you watch him on film. Hyder is definitely more of an all-around guy. But I think, maybe more in between the tackles. Like, I'm curious how they differentiate, but I do think Ohio State, like if they land this class of Baker and a key, Carlos Lachlan should be very, very happy with the group he ends up with.
This feels like I have Bo Jackson, and he's going to be a co-starter / starter for the next 3 years. So we can maybe go a little more developmental in 2026, because I know who my guys are in 2025. And you got to, again, you can't just have a bunch of guys who want to play right away. You got to have a mixture of a whole bunch of different guys.
Yeah, and you got to have the guys that when you talk to recruits, it's like, well, you can't get every 5-star, not just because the 5-stars are going to want to play and they might like other schools. You got to diversify your money too, right? You can't just throw, all your money at the, 5-star running backs or something like that. You might only have a certain amount and things like that. But, to your point, CJ Donaldson probably not going to be around. Actually, definitely not going to be around. James Peoples, Bo Jackson, Anthony Rogers, Isaiah West, Sam Williams-Dixon. I mean, Williams-Dixon will be in his 3rd year. Peoples in his 3rd year. Jackson, Rogers, and West in their 2nd year. Like, that's a significant running back room. That's 7. I mean, that.
Yeah, but like that, I don't. Let's just be. We can be on. We don't have to put names on it, but to say that all 7 of those guys be on the roster,
that's what I was trying to figure out how to say.
It's just, well, no, I don't think. I just don't think we have to dance around that anymore. It's the transfer portal exists. You load up the room the best you can, and you hold on to the best guys that you possibly can, and you go from there. I don't think between those 7 guys you just named, at least 2 of those guys are not going to be on this roster in 2026.
I don't know about at least 2.
You have a 6.
I would say definitely 1. I would say definitely 1 player is going to be gone.
I don't
But
know, man. 6-man running back room is a lot of running back. Now, granted, they're going to 105 scholarship players, so
yeah,
it opens you up to that. But I don't. 6 is a lot of running.
and depending on the kind of year that James Peoples has, maybe James Peoples is we're thinking about him in an NFL draft light at the end of 2025.
Yeah.
So there are variables here that are interesting and kind of things that we have to monitor. But um, I do think it is very impressive how Carlos Lachlan in a year has helped turn this room into a room that is a force to be reckoned with, and a room that you were looking at going, whoa, this room could be really good long term. And yeah, they had Travion Henderson, and yeah, they got Quinshawn Judkins out of the portal, and that was obviously a really big deal. And look, Tony Alford did that. That was not, that was not Carlos
No,
Lachlan
that's true. Tony
that,
Alford.
that got Travion and Quinshawn. Carlos Lachlan coached him up. Carlos Lachlan got them to that level. I think Carlos Lachlan probably deserves a lot of credit for Travion Henderson's pass blocking ability, but it is very impressive how Carlos Lachlan has turned this group into a homegrown, home run potential group.
Okay, let's move on to wide receiver and tight ends because there's only one addition here. Brian Hartline, as per usual, he found his guys, he got his guys, and then he got out of the way. And then Keenan Bailey seems to have done the same thing with Corbin Fordman, and now it's about will he get greedy or not? And it doesn't seem like you think he's going to do that. He'll stick with the one tight end in this class. So I just want to talk about Caden Dixon-Wyatt, he'll make his official visit early, May 30th, which I think is a good thing. I think that is a result of Brian Hartline's trying to get this kid in here, get that locked down, tell him, hey, don't take and get it locked in, cancel all those other visits. And Hartline's got his 4 guys. He'll have Caden Dixon-Wyatt, Brock Boyd, who they flipped from TCU, Jaden Ricketts as the in-state guy, and then Chris Henry Jr. as the 5-star recruit, original in-state guy who is now at California. That just sounds right to me. Brian Hartline is heading into the summer, waiting on one guy, and hopefully, best case scenario, he has that guy locked in when he leaves here after that final weekend in May.
So one of the things that I always think is funny is probably something that you dealt with, not just the changing rankings for these kids, which are always ever changing. These kids are 15 and 16 years old and sometimes 17, meaning they're still growing. So Caden Dixon-Wyatt's listed at 6'2", 180. I've seen him listed in other places at 6'3", 185. 6'3", 190. So I would like to figure out how big this kid exactly is.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Ohio State already has a massive prospect, literally and figuratively, in Chris Henry Jr. Coming into the class. He's listed at 6'5". He might even be 6'6". Brock Boyd is 6'2".
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Ricketts is 6 feet tall. So Caden Dixon-Wyatt might be part of a taller recruiting class, might be, a bigger type of body that Ohio State brings in. He is a current teammate of Chris Henry Jr., which I think is really interesting. They both attend Mater Dei out in California. But yeah, Caden Dixon-Wyatt, man, this would be another kid where, especially if you look at, maybe Ricketts or Boyd as maybe long-term development pieces, long-term development projects, that would be a really nice add because then you're bringing in Chris Henry and the room just, we said it on a previous pod, like I believe with our draft stuff, it's a churn. And that is what the Ohio State receiver position is with, Brandon Inniss and Carnell Tate. Are they still here in a year? Maybe. Brandon Inniss more likely probably than Carnell Tate.
Yeah.
But then Bryson Rogers, Jeremiah Smith, Phillip Bell, Mylan Graham, Des Jones, Bodpin Miller, Quincy Porter, the first one who lost their black stripe, like Demarion Witten. Like this is it is a remarkable room. And I think Caden Dixon-Wyatt, he fits that bill. He's a borderline top 100 kid. I mean, Ohio State adding a 5-star and then another 4-star and then another lower rated 4-star and then another 4-star after that. Whew. It is a Brian Hartline heater, and we have not stopped for many years now.
I think it would be some way for them to finally infiltrate Mater Dei High School out in California, which is a prestigious school out there that's produced a lot of talented football players over the past couple of decades. Matt Lenard's from there. I think Bryce Young might have started there before he transferred. I might be wrong about that though. But a lot of talent. And Ohio State has been in the race, especially of late, for some of those guys. I remember Damani Jackson as a 5-star cornerback in the 2022 class, that they were in the race for. In fact, there was that point there where they had momentum there. Jordan Davison, a running back in last year's cycle that Ohio State was in the running for, he ended up at Oregon. Damani Jackson ended up at USC and then transferred to Alabama. But Ohio State's been knocking on the modern day door for a while. And it seems like Chris Henry Jr. is the key. Who would have thought a 5-star receiver who was living in Ohio when he committed to you, transferred out to California to live with his mother and go to modern day high school, and now you might get a 2-for-1. You might get 2 modern day kids when you have failed to maybe unlock that door for so many cycles. Maybe Brian Hartline once again has the key to unlock any door, including the modern day door. I think that would be a big deal for the program, not because Brian Hartline did what he always does, but because they finally broke through with a program that they've kind of struggled to open the door with. Because some of the other California programs out there, St. John Bosco, they've gotten some guys out of there, but modern day, for whatever reason, they've always struggled to maybe open the door there. I think Bryce Young might have been at modern day off 4 years. I might have that mistaken, but regardless. Okay. That's skill positions. 30 minutes in. Listen, man, we just talking ball. And so I didn't think they would get this long in the offseason, but here we are, 30 minutes in. We still have a few other positions to go. So let's take a break here, and then we'll head to the trenches, where I think people are going to like what Andrew has predicted, because this is what an offensive line class should look like here on Buckeye Talk.
So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means thousands of can't-miss deals just in time for summer.
The denim section is unreal.
Why do I rack? All the dresses.
I always find something amazing.
Plus, buy it online and pick it up in-store the same day for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV Insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
We're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means, Andrew Gillis. We are predicting Ohio State's 2026 recruiting class. This is the first time we're doing this, and we're doing this in May before official visits happen, before anything happens. So Andrew's going to be right or wrong in July about some of these guys, because obviously there's always that wave of commitments in July. We'll probably do this again before the season starts, and then we'll do one more right before signing day as well. So 3 times a year we try to do this. This is 1.0 of Andrew predicting the 2026 recruiting class. We move on to the offensive line, where Maxwell Riley's and Sam Greer and Tucker Smith are already committed. So they're adding 2 more guys, according to Andrew Gillis, including a 5-star recruit, which, what a way for Tyler Bowen to get things kicked off. Ohio State has not landed a 5-star offensive lineman since the offensive lineman who just walked out the door, Donovan Jackson, and he was pretty good here. I don't know. And so now the reward is 1 5-star out, another 5-star in Darius Gray, the number 29 overall player and the number 2 interior offensive lineman in the country.
Yeah, I think they're going to land Darius Gray. There's a couple other offensive linemen that they are interested in, that they are after, that are highly rated. Felix Ojo is the number 7 overall player in the class, number 2 offensive tackle. As we do this, he's interested. It sounds like it's a Texas and Ohio State battle. So Ohio State's got an option there. They were in the running for a little bit with Jackson Cantwell. Obviously, he's going to commit on May 13th. And that feels like, an Oregon-Georgia battle at this point, maybe with Miami in 3rd and Ohio State in 4th. Doesn't feel like Ohio State's going to win that Cantwell battle, but they were in the mix with a lot of these 5 stars. And that is, Steven, how many times have one of our lovely texters texted us and said, why are they not in the mix for more of these guys? Why are they not at least in the conversation for more of these guys? And that was our David Sanders Jr. conversation last year. Now, I know it was August when he committed, but he commits to Tennessee, and it was, okay, well, where do you go? What do you do? Who do you look for? What do you look for? So people were just saying, Andrew, why don't they have this? Guys, what are they doing? Well, guess what? When you're in the mix, you can land guys like Darius Gray. Darius Gray really likes Ohio State, and one of the things that, I think I've learned and I think is very clear in recruiting to try to monitor is visits. He has been on campus a lot. Now, granted, he is going to take a ton of official visits. Mm-hmm. He's going to take an official visit to South Carolina, Penn State, LSU, Auburn, Tennessee, Clemson, Georgia, Virginia Tech. Kids are allowed unlimited official visits now. Schools are limited on how many they can give, but kids can take as many as they want. He's certainly taking advantage of that.
Yeah, I would take advantage of somebody paying for me to come to their...
100%. I'm not saying he's doing anything wrong.
No, he's not.
But he is definitely taking advantage of that. And I don't know like how much Virginia's in the mix for him. I don't know how much Virginia Tech's in the mix for him. I don't know how much Clemson's in the mix for him. I really think Ohio State is in a decent spot with Darius Gray. I mentioned Lachlan was down there. I know Tyler Bowen is, really, really interested in him and really, really trying to push on Darius Gray here. I think they're going to land him. Like, he has showed up when Justin Fry was the line coach. He has showed up when Tyler Bowen has been the line coach. He very clearly likes Ohio State. He likes coming out here. Whenever he shows up, they roll the red carpet out for him, like another prospect we're going to talk about, another 5-star prospect we're going to talk about later in this pod. I think Darius Gray is going to be part of this class. I just have a hunch at this point that they like where they're at, that he likes Ohio State enough to where he gives you, that punch. And while Sam Greer and Maxwell Riley and Tucker Smith were good ads, especially, when you like Riley and Greer, the in-state guys you needed to land, Darius Gray is a whole other ball game. This is an out-of-state 5-star offensive lineman that Tyler Bowen would land, and that would be very, very impressive, and I think they're going to get it done.
So question for you. Sam Greer's a tackle. Can Maxwell Riley, Tucker Smith, or Chancellor Campbell, who you also have in this class as the number 574 player, he's listed as a tackle 48 tackle. Can any of those guys play center?
Yeah, they have told Ohio State, I know for a fact, has told Tucker Smith to be ready to play both, to be ready to play guard or center. Maxwell Riley has played a little bit of center as well. So, you have him in the mix. But Greer is a tackle. Chancellor Campbell, number 574 overall prospect, number 48 tackle. He's 6'8".
Yeah, he's not playing.
This is a massive human being that's a tackle. Yeah. So I think what Ohio State has done here is with my class that I've projected out, they land Greer and Campbell as their tackles.
Yeah.
Darius Gray comes in as a guard, and then you look at Tucker Smith and Maxwell Riley and say, somebody's going to be a guard, somebody's going to be a center. And we'll figure it out.
That's what an offensive line class should look like.
You have you load up. You have positions.
Starting 5.
Yep.
Every year, go get a starting 5. And that, like, you see how we just did that? You see how we just projected? If they're all, and that doesn't mean things can change, right? Donovan Jackson ended up being the starting left tackle for a national championship team. But when they got him, it was with the idea that he was going to play left or right guard. Okay, go get the other 4 positions then. And if you're telling me that Darius Gray is Donovan Jackson in this class, where he's going to play guard, but if history repeats itself and the starting left tackle gets hurt, they run out of options and they got to play a guard, maybe he can get swung out there. But for the most part, you have 2 guards, you have 3 interior guys, 2 tackles, and one of the interior guys can play center for you.
Yeah.
That's what it should look like every year.
So this is exactly 100% it, because there was a class. I was looking back at Iowa, Michigan, Notre Dame offensive line classes for the last couple of years because I wanted to see what they look like. And I landed on Notre Dame in 2022. Listen, Emil Wagner was their best offensive line recruit. He's a kid from Wayne High School, from Dayton, 4-star prospect.
But culture fit at Notre Dame more than Ohio.
Culture fit at Notre Dame, 100%. Billy Schrouth, interior offensive lineman. He's a guard. Joey Tanoa, he's a tackle. So you have 2 tackles and an interior guy. Then you land Ty Chan. You have 3 tackles and an interior guy. And then you land, there was one more, Ashton Craig, an interior guy. So you have 3 tackles and 2 interior guys. Ashton Craig's going to be Notre Dame's starting center this year. Billy Schrouth is going to be their guard. I think they're one of their guards. Emil Wagner's their right tackle.
He started in the national championship game.
Billy Schrouth started in the national championship game. So did Emil Wagner.
Yeah.
Ashton Craig was hurt. And then you got to build it in. Joey Tanona, he did not work out. I don't think he's on the team anymore. Ty Chan, I don't know if he's even on the team anymore, but he's not like starting or part of the rotation. But you work that in, and guess what? You get 3 starters out of the group that we just named because you got to be realistic about it. Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah.
We just finished the NFL draft, and for all the people that are listening to this, I'm guessing a lot of Browns fans, I'm guessing a lot of Bengals fans, probably a lot of Steelers fans. Let's say your team makes 9 picks. If you think you get 9 all-pros out of that group, you probably should stop drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit.
Your GM is a Hall of Famer if you get all 9.
Exactly. So it's like you look at your recruiting class a little bit of the same way. Yeah, you think all these guys are going to work out, but when you land 5 guys like this, guess what? If 2 of them don't work out and you land 3 starters, that's great. Especially because we're talking about Notre Dame right now being like, I think they're going to have the best offensive line in the country in 2026 or 2025. That's exactly what this should look like at Ohio State. Tyler Bowen, if you land Darius Gray and Chancellor Campbell, hang on to your other 3 guys, take a bow. Ohio State fans, throw the roses on the theater stage. Take your time waving everybody, shaking hands, and kissing babies because you deserve a lot of praise for this class if this is what you land. And frankly, it's impressive that I even think it's possible to land this class right now.
Now, with that being said, I'm going to speak for the greedy fan. It's never enough. There are 4 5-star offensive linemen in this class. Jackson Cantwell was never a real option here. Okay, he was never a real option. Emmanuel Iheanacho is from Maryland. Right now, he's got crystal balls to Maryland. Maybe that is a real option, or maybe it's not. But it sounds like Felix Ojo and then Cody Green, number 22, player number 4, offensive lineman. He's committed to Washington. He's from California. So that's hey, can USC or Oregon flip him? I don't know if Tyler Bowen's even interested in that one. But Felix Ojo, of the 3 who are uncommitted, seems like the most likely. If Ohio State is going to get one of these 5-star tackles, their best shot is at Felix Ojo. You don't have him in the class. I do not think he has an official visit with Ohio. No, he does. He does have an official visit. It's May 30th. What are the chances? I'm not saying that, on May 31st, you and I should sit down and record a pod and say, hey, Felix Ojo's in the class now. No. What are the chances, though, that Ohio State comes out of that visit and it can start building momentum towards something, even if they're playing the long game with Felix Ojo, versus that visit happens and like the Jackson Cantwell visit, and it was like everybody came out of that going, okay, this is not like a real thing. He respects the program, but it was never going to be a real thing. Can Felix Ojo be he visit on May 30th, leaves that visit, and it's like, hey, this is now interesting, and now you got 6 guys.
I think so. I absolutely think so. Because he was on hand, I believe, like right before the spring game. Mm-hmm. He was here April 10th and 11th. So the interest is real. Like, this is, I also think, a David Sanders conversation. Like, David Sanders, like, when he was on campus for like the Student Appreciation Day.
Yeah.
Like, when a kid visits a couple of different times, you can kind of look at it and say, I think this is real. I think Felix Ojo is real. And frankly, I think Ohio State and Texas are his top 2 schools right now. So yeah, it's absolutely possible. So, we could get to that day. And I've said this on this pod before. If you're not leading for a recruit when they leave campus, you're not going to get them.
Right.
If you have an official visit for a kid over the summer, and Felix Ojo visits, and he goes, I don't know, I still think Texas is number 1 for me after he leaves Columbus, he's not going to Ohio State. Much like we debate these rankings going, how could a player drop or rise when they haven't played football in 6 months? How could a player leave campus, not be on a campus of a particular school, and go, I actually think I want to go there now that I think about it, that I'm gone, that I'm not on the, on the practice facility football field, or I'm not in the locker room. So I think it's absolutely possible that we get to that point and Felix Ojo is like, oh man, Ohio State's in the lead. And Texas, who has an official visit 2 weeks after Ohio State, Texas goes, oh man, we gotta rally here.
So that's offensive line. That's what it should look like. 5 guys. And you've got a good mixture of some highly rated guys, some quality Ohio guys, and then some developmental guys. This is what an Ohio State offensive line class should look like every year. That's the standard. We should be having conversations like I just had where it's like, hey, this class is good. What about a cherry on top? Not the cherry on top shouldn't be the entire milkshake. And that's what David Sanders turned into. Hey, can you be the milkshake? Because if not, we don't have a drink. And now we're hot outside. It's 95 degrees where everybody else has a cool beverage.
David Sanders was the linchpin, and you are not requiring a guy that you don't know if you're going to get to be the linchpin. If you don't get him, it's okay. If you didn't get David Sanders last year and it felt like the offensive line class, kind of what it could be, fell apart. If you don't get Felix Ojo or Jackson Cantwell or any of these other 5-star tackles, the class is not going to fall apart.
Defensive line. I want to start with Pierre Dean because it seems like he is trending. He is trending in an Ohio State direction in a way that seems like an official visit is more of a punctuator than anything else.
Yeah, I believe he had his list scheduled. He had his final 3 before he even took a visit to Ohio State.
Yeah.
I know he's getting recruited offensive line, defensive line. Like, he's getting recruited in a couple of different ways. I think he ends up on defense. And this is one of those kids where you look at and you see the official visit. He's got 3 scheduled right now. South Carolina, Georgia, and then Ohio State.
Yeah.
Which I believe is also just his final 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those visits to where you start to go, well, maybe going last is best.
Mm-hmm.
There are some kids where it's good, like Caden Dixon-Wyatt. I'll agree with you, Stephen, that it's good to go first for a kid like that. Get him in the mix. Get him away from these campuses. You remember Quincy Porter last year?
Yeah.
Like right before he was about to go to Michigan?
Yeah.
That's a good situation. Pierre Dean is one of those kids where you look at and go, maybe it's good that they're getting him at the very end. Maybe it's good.
It depends on the assistant coach we're talking about, because Larry works at his own pace, which is why it was so interesting that he had so many defensive linemen committed in June. He typically has gone slower route, closer, build a long-term relationship, play the long game. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, to be fair. There's been some cycles where it didn't work out. Brian Hartline is an elite recruiter who sometimes it feels like he doesn't actually want to recruit. He's very much, I know who I want. I know who wants me. Let's lock in and let's move on with our lives. So with wide receivers, that's why my pitch was, it makes sense why Caden Dixon-Wyatt is coming here first, to see if Brian Hartline can shut the door on everybody else. I do think for Larry Johnson and the way he goes about things, it probably is best that he is going last and can be more of a closer. And with that said, Pierre Dean, the composite has him as an interior offensive lineman. He's number 4 amongst them. He would be number 6 amongst the defensive linemen because it does seem like he's going to be playing defensive tackle wherever he goes. Okay, next here is you've got Derek Coleman-Brusa out of Washington, the number 161 player, the number 18 defensive end edge rusher. And you've got Kashawn Eliezer, the number 475 player, number 44 edge rusher. He's a 3-star recruit. And then Jameer Perez as the first Glenville guy we're talking about. I'm assuming that Kashawn and Jameer are kind of developmental guys. So I want to focus on Derek Coleman Bruiser, the Washington kid. You're saying Ohio State's going to pull a kid from Washington into Ohio. How are they going to do that? Why'd you go there?
This was the group that I stared at for 30 minutes, putting names in, taking names out. This is the most unsettled position of Ohio State's 2026 recruiting class.
That sounds about right.
This is the most nobody really knows position that is left. And the reason, they don't have a quarterback committed, they don't have a running back committed, and they don't have any defensive linemen committed. So it's kind of hard to see where they're headed defensive line wise, because once you get a quarterback committed, you're done. Once you get a running back's a little bit different. With defensive line, you know, they just brought in a host of defensive tackles in 2025. Mm-hmm. So, you know, this is one of those groups where it's like, all right, if they get, you know, let's say Pierre Dean, let's say he's already committed. Let's say he committed last week and he commits to Ohio State. We could probably look at this and go, okay, maybe they're done at defensive tackle. Maybe they're just after 2 or 3 more ends and then they'll be okay. Coleman Bruce is one where I think, you know, he's visited campus a couple of times. I know Ohio State really likes him. They've got this second to last visit. You know, this is a kid that Ohio State is going to have to try to pull out of the Pacific Northwest. You look at his other schools that he's taken official visits to: Washington, UCLA, USC, Oregon. If you go look him up right now on 247, he's got a lot of crystal balls and predictions and everything in. Those were all given last summer of 2024. So sometimes those crystal balls can kind of fade out, right? They can, you know, they can kind of change over time, and that's what I'm kind of betting on with him. But again, this is a bet. This is a long shot bet because there's a lot of other really good edge rushers in this class. Carter Meadows is a player that Ohio State is really interested in. He's out of Gonzaga in the DC area. I know they really like Zion Ely, who committed to Maryland and then shut down his recruitment. Jake Cruel, kid from IMG Academy, is a kid that they're after. Luke Wafel goes to the Hutton School in Princeton, New Jersey. Like there are other edge rushers that they're after, but you don't really have a good sense of where they are on a lot of these guys. And the reason I went with Coleman Bruce is that I think he likes Ohio State, and I think Ohio State likes him. This is the one that I feel least confident. This and Keeson Eliezer from the North Carolina Raleigh area, I believe. He's a 3-star edge rusher, and this is another guy where, you know, Ohio State, they have an official visit with him on June 13th, and are they going to land him? Maybe. I do not feel great about where they're at with much of their defensive line right now.
Welcome to covering Ohio State football recruiting. Nobody knows what they're on the defensive line, and Larry Johnson loves it that way. Okay, let's take
just real quick too. Jameer Perez, he is a kid out of Glenville. He is currently unrated by the 247 composite.
It's a little shocking because he's got a pretty quality offer list.
He's got official visits scheduled to Vanderbilt, Wisconsin, Iowa State, Cincinnati, and then Ohio State is on June 20th. I mean, look, a kid from Glenville gets an offer to Ohio State, you kind of turn your head, and then you look at the schools involved, and you kind of turn your head. He's 6'4", 330 pounds, so that's a big boy. So you start to think like maybe Ohio State's gonna run the 3-4.
I'm just saying, man, it's right there.
If Ohio State runs the 3-4, he's your nose tackle.
I'm just saying,
maybe
it's right there. It's right there.
He's a massive human being, and so maybe you look at him and go, you know what, if that, you know, because obviously we talk about committable offers and all these other things. If
it's committable, Ohio State doesn't do the non-committable.
Yeah, I was gonna say like if that is the case, if that is true, assuming that is true, I think Jameer Perez is going to end up with Ohio State, and I think the Buckeyes are going to get a massive body in the middle of that defense. So he is the one actually that I think of a defensive line group that is very uncertain. I think Jameer Perez is probably going to end in that group.
And that's one of two Glenville guys you have in this class. Let's take a break, and then we'll move into the back seven of the defense where we'll be talking about the other Glenville player that Andrew Gillis has in Ohio State's 2026 recruiting class here on Buckeye Talk. And we're back on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means, Andrew Gillis. We're predicting Ohio State's 2026 recruiting class. The first of 3 times we're going to try to do this. We try to do this 3 times a year. We did it with 25. This is the third time that Andrew's going through this exercise. He did it with the 24 class, which I know was very difficult because he got here in July and was like, I just know Jeremiah Smith exists. I don't know these other people. And then we went to go see Miley Graham and he went, whoa, that guy's pretty good too. 24 commits, 294.77 total points, 4 5-star recruits, 2 kids from Glenville. The first we talked about before the break, and that's Jameer Perez, the defensive tackle. He's underrated, though. Not offer list. I'm not saying he should be like the 22nd best player in the country, but I don't know. Wisconsin, Ohio State, Vanderbilt. That's not a bad offer list. CJ Santa. Cool. Thank you. Number 333 player, number 25 overall linebacker in the class. He is already in the class, and so the player you're adding is the higher rated one of the bunch, and that is Sincere Johnson, the number 101 player, number 6 linebacker, also from Glenville High School. Tell me why he isn't younger Arvell Reese.
Dang it, Steven. I wanted to invoke Arvell Reese's name. I wanted to talk about because I think Sincere Johnson might be my Arvell Reese. I watched that kid play in a playoff game when I've only seen him play one. I mean, I've watched his tape 800 times on 247 and Huddle and all that other stuff. I've read about him. I've done my duty as a reporter covering recruiting. And then I saw him play. And I went, oh, good heavens. He is my drive the bus member of Ohio State's 2026 class. Sincere Johnson is physical. He's fast. He's smart. He plays with an edge. Like, there are times where, the play's gone, an offensive lineman would try to block him. The play's gone. It's like, what's the offensive lineman doing? And Sincere Johnson would just give him a shove. It's like, you need that mean streak at linebacker. And maybe I'm just a sucker for that, kind of old school football, that just rough and tumble kind of game. I love Sincere Johnson's game. I think Sincere Johnson is a great player. I think Ohio State is going to land him. I know Penn State was really high on his list. They seem to have fallen off. He's got 4 official visits: Alabama, Oklahoma, then Ohio State, then USC to finish it off. But I do think Sincere Johnson ends up in Ohio State's class. And I think he is one of those kids where sometimes, you hear high school coaches say, this kid is the best kid we've had here in years. They could play him at corner and they'd be successful, right? You have those kind of kids and those kind of coaches that'll talk about him. Sincere Johnson could genuinely play defensive end at Ohio State, and I think he could grow into that. He could play an outside linebacker in a 3-4. I think he could grow into that. He could play an inside linebacker in a 3-4 or a 4-3. He could do whatever you want. Sincere Johnson is going to be a huge add for James Laurinaitis. And frankly, I think with Santa and Sincere Johnson in the class, I don't think you need 3. I think you can settle with 2. There's another Tyler Atkinson is kind of a move around edge rusher linebacker guy. I don't have him. He's a 5-star kid in this class. I think he's going to go to Georgia. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe people can point and laugh at me, and I could say it was just a prediction, so don't take me seriously. But I do think Atkinson is going to end up at Georgia. Which, look, he's from Grayson High School in Georgia. That. It's okay to lose those kids, especially when you have Sincere Johnson coming in. So Ohio State, James Laurinaitis does another really great job. Sincere Johnson's a borderline top 100 kid, number 101 in the class. Santa, number 333. I think you add them and you look at where this linebacker room is going to be next year. Sonny Styles is going to be gone, but I guess technically Arvell Reese could leave. And if Arvell Reese is as good as we kind of talk about him, maybe it's an option for him. But Peyton Pierce will still be here. TJ Alford, Eli Lee, Riley Pettijohn, Garrett Stover. This linebacker room is going to be loaded when you add these two, and I think they're going to.
I'm forgetting his name right now. The Ohio kid that ended up at Alabama.
Justin Hill.
Yeah, Justin Hill. Tyler Atkinson is like Justin Hill in reverse because he already lives down there. I remember the first time I saw Tyler Atkinson, he got offered as an 8th grader. I'm pretty positive he got offered at the same day camp that Chris Henry Jr. got offered at a couple of years ago, and both of those guys were 8th graders. I am fascinated by Tyler Atkinson. Sincere Johnson, I mean, him and Arvell Reese are the same number. They both were number 8. He's going to be a Buckeye. We do this with Ohio kids all the time. They got an Ohio State offer when we go, they're going to be Buckeyes, and that's not always true. It is true 99.9% of the time with Glenville kids. They're going to be Buckeyes. And he's going to be awesome. You don't have Tyler Atkinson in the class. And the reason I think you don't have Tyler Atkinson in the class is the reason why Justin Hill didn't come to Ohio State. Because you got to see it before you believe that your skill set is going to be used. So I do wonder, Tyler Atkinson hasn't scheduled any official visits yet. And I feel like Ohio State's fight for him, whether he commits to Georgia at some point in the next couple of months here or he waits all the way up till signing day to sign with somebody, I need to see Ohio State play football before I know if Tyler Atkinson has a real shot at being a Buckeye. Because if they are going to even do close to the idea of what we're talking about here, where CJ Hicks is kind of this hybrid outside linebacker, edge rusher, maybe you do the same thing with Arvell Reese at times. Maybe even Bo Atkinson can be a part of that mix too. But it is, you see more 3-down lineman stuff than maybe a guy like Tyler Atkinson, who his skill set and the fact that he's from Georgia scream, you should go be a Bulldog, because they do that with their players already. They already do what you're wondering if Ohio State is going to do. But if Ohio State, with the natty monkey off their back, if they're going to start doing some of that stuff, then I do think players with Tyler Atkinson's skill set become a little bit more intriguing. I understand why you didn't consider him right now, because you just can't. You can't say, hey, a dude who plays a role that Ohio State has never really used is going to commit to Ohio State based off of the idea that they might use it, when there was an Ohio kid who didn't commit here because he didn't want to play for a school who showed them the idea but never had actually really used it. But he's the one where I'm with you. Santa and Sincere Johnson as in-state guys, both of which are pretty quality guys. I think that's a really good class for James Laurinaitis. But if we start seeing them in fall camp do stuff that seems like, Tyler Atkinson could fit into that role because CJ Hicks is doing it, because Arvell Reese is doing it, then we might have to revisit Tyler Atkinson if we do this again in September.
Yeah, that's 100% an option. The only thing that I would like to say too, though, is imagine there was a 5-star receiver from Cleveland.
For sure.
That is the equivalent to Georgia and Ohio State right now, where it's this kid is going to come off the edge probably for Georgia. And what team in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years has been better at producing NFL-ready, NFL defensive linemen, edge rushers than Georgia? No, there hasn't been one. And so, I think with Justin Hill and Ohio State, you need to see it, and you gotta prove it and whatever. But I think that's the difference. It's, like if Justin Hill was a receiver and was out of Winton Woods and decided to go to Alabama, then it's much more of a conversation, because wait a minute, Ohio State was really pushed for you and you went to Alabama. That's kind of crazy.
For sure.
The Tyler Atkinson thing is, he's from Georgia, and if anybody goes to, there's no shame in losing that fight. If Ohio State pushes for him, they do everything right, and they just lose it, there's no shame in losing that battle.
No, you're right. Except Edric Houston's also from Georgia, and he was a 5-star recruit, and he's here. That's why
that is fair.
Steps have been taken that have made this more realistic than even the day they offered him. It was. And I'm not even saying that to say that it is going to happen. I'm saying that I think we can have if we start seeing real signs other than just CJ Hicks moving positions, that Ohio State might start doing some stuff that people who fit the Micah Parsons, Abdul Carter, Justin Hill, Tyler Atkinson's skill set. Doesn't mean they're all going to be as good as Michael Parsons is and as Abdul Carter is, but the skill set they have as these hybrid guys. If we start seeing signs of that in fall camp, we can have a realistic conversation about it in a way that right now it's just a pipe dream. Right now, that idea is no different than the Bullet was with Court Williams, than the Jack was. It's an idea, but not a real thing. If we see tangible evidence, we can have the conversation then. But okay, cornerback. Jacob Weatherspoon, 171 overall player. He is already committed. Number 14 cornerback is an Ohio kid. You've got Ohio State adding 2 more cornerbacks, one of which is not Elbert Hill, which we kind of mentioned this last week, Andrew, though, the idea of it's not, you don't want to lose highly rated Ohio guys, especially to other potential Big Ten schools. But if Ohio State is recruiting at the level it's supposed to be, it's not a gaping hole missing. And that could be the case with Elbert Hill. While also you just landed Devin Sanchez, who you think is a 3-year contributor for you. 2 of those years, he'll probably be a lockdown starter. And this year, he's at best a rotational piece alongside Davis Nichols and Jermaine Matthews and Aaron Scott. So you've got Jordan Thomas joining Jacob Weatherspoon, the number 176 player, number 16 cornerback, and then Donovan Webb, the number 337 player, number 27 cornerback. Those are 2 guys where this is a class of guys that shouldn't be looking at 2026 and going, I'm trying to win a job. They should be looking at 2027 and saying, I might be trying to win a job at earliest.
Yeah, because Davison will be gone, but, is Jermaine Matthews going to go pro after 3 years? Maybe. He might have a great year and leave. And if that's the case, Aaron Scott and Devin Sanchez should still be here. And, okay, well, if Jermaine Matthews is here, Aaron Scott, Devin Sanchez, Jermaine Matthews, your corners are going to be locked in. You are going to have 3 locked-in corners going into 2026. Aaron Scott will be draft eligible. Jermaine Matthews will be entering his last year. Devin Sanchez his second year. So, you don't really need it, I think. I think this is a position much like receiver to where development might be okay. If you have a development kid, it might be okay. Jordan Thomas, keep an eye on Notre Dame here. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame is also very interested in him, and I think he is very interested in Notre Dame. The weird thing with Notre Dame is like sometimes they recruit and it's like you have to be a culture fit at Notre Dame. Like he is. Doesn't mean he's a culture fit nowhere else. But I do think Notre Dame, he fits there. So Ohio State's really interested in him. I think Ohio State's probably in the lead right now, which is why I have them getting him. But Notre Dame is interested in Michigan too. Michigan is the other school. So like this is a Midwest. I mean, he's from Bergen Catholic. He's a former teammate of Quincy Porter out in New Jersey. So Jordan Thomas to me feels like a guy that Ohio State's going to have to battle for, and they're probably going to have to keep battling for, but I do think they're going to get him in this class. So, I mean, he's, top 125 player. He's number 125 right now in the class. I think Donovan Webb is your third corner. I think we were talking about the corner numbers being a little low. I think you probably want 3. So I think you get Webb. And I think if you end up with Weatherspoon, Webb, and Thomas, I think you're feeling really good about it. The Elbert Hill thing.
He has scheduled an official visit as of.
What's that?
He has scheduled an official visit as of last week, though. So
right. So I will say though, the Elbert Hill thing. It's May 30th.
Yep.
It definitely feels a little bit where there's smoke, there's fire. To me, Elbert Hill is a really, really talented prospect who has just kind of taken his tour around the country, which is fine. He's allowed to do that. He should do that. And I think, frankly, if he were to commit to Ohio State, I think he'd be the best prospect in their cornerback class. I think he's better than Weatherspoon. I think I think not just what the rankings say. I think this kid is really elite. His athleticism is off the charts. Really, really great football player. I'm I'm curious to see how this plays out, because this was one of those kids where I debated putting him in the class for a little bit, and I just thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and maybe we get to a Trey McNutt situation where, forget maybe how it went down, but just sometimes kids just want to blaze their own trail. Kids just want to do their own thing, and that's okay. That kids can do that. That's okay. Kids just want to have their own path, and I'm starting to wonder if that is it for Albert Hill. Again, really, really good football player, and frankly, like a really, really good kid. Like I've talked to him a couple of times when I've seen Archbishop Hoban. I really, really enjoy speaking with him. He's well, he's like well spoken. He like knows how to handle media, and he's great to talk to. He always gives you your time. So it's like, this is not, I know people don't like kids that, they're in Ohio that leave the state of Ohio, but this is a really good kid and a really good football player. And I think Ohio State would love to have him, but I don't know. I have seen a lot of, smoke about him visiting USC and Oregon and Bama and all these other schools, to where it feels like they're making a lot of noise right now. And you start to wonder, okay, maybe should I start to listen to that? And I think I did a little bit.
And then you close things out with some fireworks. Ohio State's already got 2 safety commits in this class. Blaine Bradford, the number 25 player, number 2 safety in the country out of Louisiana. That was a really big pull for Matt Guerrieri. And they've also got Simeon Caldwell out of Florida, who is the nephew of Tim Walton. He's the number 102 player, number 7 safety. He's Sonny Styles. He's going to be a nickel Sam. Maybe he turns into a linebacker. Maybe he doesn't. But you think Matt Guerrieri is going to have the best safety recruiting class Ohio State has ever had, because you are not just giving them Blaine Bradford. You are giving them Braylon Womack, out of Mississippi, the number 21 player and the top safety in the country. Ohio State flirted with this last year when they got Fahim Delane, and if Trey McNutt had stayed home, that would have been interesting. But you are saying there are, of the 7 top safeties in the country, you are saying Ohio State is going to get 3 of them. Am I reading that correctly?
Yep. Bradford, I think they're going to hang on, man. I think you don't make that decision if you're Blaine Bradford that early without, being locked in. And one of the things, if you saw his dad on social media right after he committed saying, no, this is it. Like Ohio State's like locked in, and look, things can change. I remember talking to Naheem Offord's dad last year and people around Naheem Offord, and one of the things that should have maybe triggered more alarm bells was that Ohio State's the front runner right now. That was what I heard. And I believe I said that on the podcast, but like that should have been maybe a little bit more of an alarm than it was. And I don't get that sense with Bradford. So I think they hang on to Bradford.
2 visits happening? The June 20th visit to LSU.
I'm working on figuring that out. Okay. I'm trying to figure that out if he's going to take those visits, because I think that's going to be pretty indicative of what's going on. Because like, look, you could take those visits, and it obviously Ohio State would probably prefer those not to happen. But especially because if LSU is going to get his last visit, I mean, he friggin' goes to school in Baton Rouge. Like, it's not hard for him to get there. If LSU,
if he is still, let's use the last 2 5-star commitments Ohio State has gotten the last 2 years, right? Jeremiah Smith felt like it was, whether it was true or not, that he was actually ever considering flipping. The fact that he still continued to visit other schools allowed that fire to keep burning. So no matter how many times it feels like his messaging from him and his camp to Brian Hartline in Ohio State was, as long as Ryan Day and Brian Hartline are in Columbus, I'll be in Columbus. And I'm just taking these visits as insurance to make sure that, my ducks are in order if that does change, because Brian Hartline's a solid after dude, so I get that. But also, we live in this world where there's a lot of weird stuff happening. Kids are getting paid to just simply go on a visit. Versus Devin Sanchez the following year, who committed in December, came on his official visit, and went, I'm done. The only place he went was Columbus. There's your scale. Where is Blaine Bradford on that scale? And I guess we'll find out after June 13th.
More towards the side that would make you feel good for Ohio State, I think. I don't think he's more towards the, he's actively shopping. I think this is, he's looking around, but like, I visited Jameer Brown, and Jameer Brown the next day was at Notre Dame. Like, these schools are not necessarily sometimes thrilled that these kids leave. Now, Jameer Brown is a different example.
Was he at Notre? But the thing, he's playing 7-on-7. So some of these schools,
he was at Notre Dame for
a visit. Was visiting. Okay,
he legit. Yes,
there's a thing happening right now where a kid is on 7-on-7 teams, and they're playing on different campuses, and people go, "Oh, that kid's visiting the school." No, he's
happened to Jameer Brown.
Playing football.
I wrote about that.
He's playing football. But if Jameer Brown was actually at another school, then that's an intriguing thing in that situation. But with Blaine Bradford, I just feel like, okay, fine. His father's come out and said this is over with, all that stuff. Let's see what happens after June 13th.
Yeah. Let's see what happens after June 13th. Let's see what happens after May 13th. Like, let's see what happens after May 10th, May 25th. I don't know. Like, let's see if that visit to Texas is going to happen. Because, again, LSU feels like the biggest contender here, but, like, Texas is obviously going to keep poking, and LSU is obviously going to walk down the street and keep poking. So, we'll see with Bradford. But I do think they're going to hang on to him. And if you remember, we did a class prediction in 25, and I think our last one, we did it in, like, November. I did not have Naheem Alford in it.
No.
I took Alford out. Right now I'm keeping Bradford in. So whatever you value that at, value it at that level.
But it's because Naheem Alford never did anything that made you feel like he was going to stay.
Sure.
You can tweet random, but you never did anything that made it seem like you were going to stay. You know who else has shut down their commitment? Their recruitment? Chris Henry Jr. So we're not having conversations about whether or not Chris Henry Jr. is going to flip to Oregon or USC or anywhere else, because he came out and shut down his commitment. If Blaine wants to wait till after his official visit, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. He doesn't live here. So that's perfectly fine. I just feel Devin Sanchez, after his official visit, shut down his recruitment. Let's see if Blaine Bradford does the same thing. I think Simeon Caldwell, this isn't as noisy around him because he's not from a place that kids don't necessarily leave. People leave Florida all the time. And then Braylon Womack. I don't know why.
So I want to talk about Caldwell and Womack. The reason I feel comfortable taking 2 linebackers and 3 safeties
because he might be one.
Is because Caldwell might be both.
Yeah.
Caldwell might be someone that Matt Patricia or, maybe, in a couple of years there's a different defensive coordinator, Patricia goes back to the NFL or something like that, is somebody that you can kind of have as a hybrid, is kind of have as a guy that can maybe it's a Sonny Style situation, but it's not a full-time linebacker. Maybe he's just a big linebacker, right? Like a dime backer type of player where, you have him come in on certain situations. There's a lot of different ways to do it. There's a lot of different ways to bake that cake. So I think with Caldwell, we'll see, but I think the reason why they're going to push for another safety really hard, and I think the safety right now that they're really after is Braylon Womack, Hartfield Academy in Flowood, Mississippi. 4 visits: Florida A&M, Auburn, Ohio State, in that order. Ohio State gets the last visit on June 20th. That is a big visit weekend for Ohio State. That is a big mammoth of a weekend for Ohio State. Other visitors that weekend scheduled right now: Chris Henry Jr. shut down his commitment. 5-star running back Derek Cooper, Simeon Caldwell, who's in the class, 4-star edge rusher Cam Brooks, JB Shabazz, 4-star offensive tackle, Jaquaden Guilford, receiver from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Jameer Perez, a guy who I have in that class. So that's the weekend that you start to map out and go, hey, maybe this is going to work. Maybe this is going to happen. I like where Womack is at with Ohio State. He made that swing last year. I've talked about that a lot with his recruiting visits. Ohio State, I believe Michigan, Notre Dame. He did all that kind of grouping together. I know his family was absolutely not worried about him going north. They, I always laugh sometimes at these prediction crystal ball type things because like right after he visited Notre Dame, there was a crystal ball in to go to Notre Dame. And I was like, well, that seems premature. Ohio State hasn't gotten their hands on him yet. And they did the next day. And now that crystal ball is gone for Braylon Womack. His other 3 schools are Auburn, A&M, and Florida, but they rolled out the red carpet. I said at the beginning of this podcast that like Darius Gray, they roll out the red carpet for certain kids. Every time Braylon Womack shows up, Matt Guerreri, Tim Walton, Matt Patricia, they all run over and talk to Braylon Womack. They all really let Braylon Womack know how appreciated he is at Ohio State and how much he's wanted at Ohio State. So this to me is a kid where, I mean, you look at what he can give you, and he's so much bigger and stockier than he was a summer ago going into his senior year. I mean, this is a really big physical transformation for this kid, and I think Ohio State's got a good shot at landing him. So I'm going to put him in my class right now, and I think this helps you bridge that gap of what could have been maybe some safety troubles down the line and down the horizon. Getting kids like Fahim Delane in this class, and then bringing in Blaine Bradford and Braylon Womack and Simeon Caldwell, this changes things. This puts you in a different light, and this puts you in a different position. And I think it is very reasonable that some of Ryan Day's most recent coaching hires, Carlos Lachlan, Tyler Bowen, Matt Guerreri, I think it is very reasonable to say those 3 have elevated their recruiting and elevated Ohio State's recruiting to a different level.
It also helps that you just had the best safety tandem in the country. That can help you go get the top 2 safeties in the country.
100%.
I'm a little shocked that they don't bring Womack and Bradford at the same time because it seems like a chance for Guerreri to sit down with both of them, turn on some film of Latham and Caleb and go, this is how you guys fit in this defense playing together. But I get it. You want to have each guy feel like they're getting on your undivided attention. Okay, so here's the class. First time at this, we're Andrew, first of 3 cracks at it. Chris Henry Jr., the number 11 player, number 2 wide receiver. Braylon Womack, the number 21 player and top safety. Blaine Bradford, the number 25 player, number 2 safety. Darius Gray, the number 29 player, number 2 interior offensive lineman. Pierre Dean, the number 59 player, number 6 defensive lineman. Sincere Johnson, number 101 player, number 6 linebacker. Simeon Caldwell, number 102 player, number 7 safety. Caden Dixon Wyatt, the number 107 player, number 15 wide receiver. Maxwell Riley, the number 128 player, number 8 interior offensive lineman. Sam Greer, number 148 player and 13 offensive tackle. Derek Coleman Brusa, the number 161 player, number 18 defensive end. Favor Key, the number 167 player, number 14 running back. Jacob Weatherspoon, the number 171 player, number 14 cornerback. Carson Baker, the number 177 player, number 15 running back. Jaden Ricketts, number 264 and number 45 wide receiver. CJ Santa, the number 333 player, the 25th best linebacker. Donovan Webb, 337 overall, 27th amongst safeties. Brock Board, 373 overall, 59th amongst wide receivers. Corbin Fordham, 460 overall, 22nd among tight ends. Chancellor Campbell, the number 574 player, 48th amongst offensive tackles. Tucker Smith, 743rd overall, 65th amongst interior offensive linemen. Kassan Eliezer, 475 overall, 44 defensive end edge rusher. And Jameer Perez as a 6'3", 330-pound defensive lineman from Glenville High School in Cleveland. 24 commits, 4 5-star recruits. That's the first of 3 times Andrew and I will do this. We're in the dog days of the offseason where recruiting takes over, and there will be plenty of recruiting news over the next couple of months here. Get the text 614-403-0089 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. All news, all analysis, everything you should possibly ever want as an Ohio State football fan. For Andrew Gillis, I'm Stephen Means. That was Buckeye Talk.